Hello, and welcome to another episode of Over the Should podcast. Today, it is my privilege to introduce you to Breye'l Banks. Breye'l's journey is one of resilience and transformation. After initially leaving college, she made the empowering decision to return to Georgia State University to pursue a psychology degree. This path wasn't just about academics for her. She took her education and life experiences and helped launch a coaching business that truly makes a difference. While she was working at one of America's leading used car dealerships, she discovered her passion for coaching and guiding associates and leaders to reach their full potential. This passion for coaching also turned into a speaking business for her. Driven by a desire to inspire women to envision themselves as high-value queens in both personal and financial realms, Breye'l passionately shares her insights on the Create and Grow Your Dream Business podcast, where she
Right.
consistently champions the belief that you can truly achieve your dreams. You just have to empower your mind radically. Breye'l's mission is clear: to align herself and others with the reality that dreams are not just aspirations, but achievable goals. So, welcome to the show.
Yes, I'm super excited to be here. It's so interesting, Pamela. You sharing my story just through your words shows the power and the dynamic of transformation and, like you said, resilience. So I'm super honored to be here with you today.
Oh, it's our privilege to have you. I would love to know more about this transition. Your decision to leave college, what was that about? What came up for you when that happened? And then
Yeah.
going back into college, what created that opportunity for you?
Yes, great question. And I love to share this story because I know a lot of women on your platform, my platform, and just all the platforms out there are going to be able to benefit from this. So I say dropping out of college. You say leaving college, but here's the truth. I was kicked out of college, okay? And it really stemmed from partying and having a blast and being young. And of course, as we look back on it, right, we're like, of course, that's what happened. But in reality, it was that experience. It was that turmoil. It was that heartbreak of um, having to explain to my mom that day, like, hey, I won't be going back to college. I got these F's and these people have kicked me out of here. And there's no going back at this phase now. And I remember I was heartbroken. I was sad. I felt like I was disappointing my mom. So this was 2013. Fast forward 2015, the week before I start working at CarMax, like you said, one of the largest auto dealerships, my car was repossessed. Right. So here I am now faced with this challenge, this obstacle of I was just about to get my life back started, right? Like this was the opportunity. I knew that this is exactly what I needed. But in that moment, I was faced with that obstacle. So I start working at CarMax and I start working in the repossession department, right? And as I'm working there, this light bulb goes off in my head and it says, all right, now ladies, lean in because here it is. It's not me that was bad with money. It's I simply didn't know how to manage money, right? And I saw that there were so many people in this department who I was calling to collect upon who didn't know how to manage their finances as well. And I believe that the reason my car was repossessed, it was because it was meant for me to have that experience myself so that I can understand what others were going through as I helped them through getting their car repossessed as well. So imagine that, right? Like right there in that moment, it was so transparent for me to see, I have something here. So as I continued to grow through CarMax, a big shift for me was branding, right? How I was showing up. As I was growing up, I recognized that my maturity professionally needed to grow as well, right? But that ultimately stemmed from my personal confidence and how much within myself was I willing to change, overcome, change my story, share my story so that others could see you're not the only one going through this. I've been through this as well. So that is what really caused the pivotal shift in my life. And I know that was like a lot, but that was real.
No, that was beautiful. And you said something that really struck me, and that's when you were going through that financial discovery and then seeing other people having the same challenges, you took a mindset of this isn't me, this is an education opportunity. And I think that's really important for people to hear. because we believe the stories that we tell about ourselves. So when we
Yeah.
have these limiting beliefs that it's me, I can't balance a checkbook, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills, guess what? You probably aren't, because the bar you've set for yourself is you can't, you won't, you don't know how to. So I love that you took this different posture, and that's not common for women because we're oftentimes struggling with imposter syndrome and self-doubt, and we've had, school tell us we're not good at math since we were little. But you said, no, not this isn't me. This is
Yeah.
just an opportunity for me to learn. And then you took that knowledge and you started to empower other people. That is
Yeah.
powerful, Breye'l.
Thank you. Even as I coach leaders, what I found is that as women, like you said, it's our story, right? It's very much so the emotions we put behind what has happened to us. So exactly as you speak about, it's the should, right? I should tell my story to this person that I just saw at Walmart, but I don't want her to judge me. I should start to sell these hats because my grandmother had cancer and she helped me make these hats and her head was cold, and I see that there's a need for hats, but I don't want anybody to say my hats are ugly. I should. And oftentimes we're stuck in our past life versus who we can be because we allow the should to keep us frozen.
Yeah, the should is, well, it's a couple things. One, it could be your comfort zone, and I should behave a certain way because it's small and it's humble and it's accommodating. The other is like expectations that have been set on us. But to have the bravery to step outside of that is pretty huge. When you were coaching and coming up and learning about how to be a coach and how to help associates and leads, were there common challenges that you saw with leadership and the associates you were working with?
Oh, yeah. And before I even tell you about the challenges, I want to be very transparent and say I saw them within myself. Right. And so, what I really help women gain clarity on is that everything is a mirror, right? And oftentimes we can see the challenges and the obstacles and the faults in others, but the only reason why we see them in this experience in life is because it's something that we need to work on within ourselves. And to answer your question, some of the challenges that I saw, as you spoke about already, is number one, imposter syndrome, right? Corporate America is very much so like politics. It's bureaucracy. Karl Marx was a sociologist. He spoke about the concept that the corporate office, again, is built like a triangle. Oftentimes, when we see people higher up, we think they're better than them. We think we can't sit at the table with them. We think they have these gifts that are so far better than the gifts that we have when that's not a truth, right? What I really saw within that corporate space, what I see within women is the biggest thing that I help women with is their confidence, right? So that's how I, again, got started and I pivoted. Saw that it took confidence in me to even step to the table, to step inside the room, to say, hey, I'm good enough to develop myself to sit at this table. My ideas are great. I saw that as my associates that were like up under me, who I was leading, even higher up leadership, it all boiled down to confidence. Are you willing to be confident enough to make that beautiful merge of personal and professional confidence? Because again, a lot of people want that podcast, right? A lot of people want that $100,000 car. A lot of people want that marriage where it's successful and it leads with children. But are you confident enough to develop yourself personally is really the question.
Yeah, and words matter. And I'm so intrigued by the words you've been using during this podcast because you said that earlier, like, not me, like, I need to be educated. And right now, when you were talking, you said, I'm good enough. You took one word out that most people say, and the one word is not. Most people say, I'm not good enough for this. But
Yeah.
you just removed that from your lexicon and you decided that you are good enough. You need to probably relentlessly pursue what excellence looks like. What do I need to learn? Who do I need to learn from? Who are my mentors? Who are my coaches? That is dedication to getting better. And that
Yeah.
means, I mean, even to take that step, you have to have a modicum of confidence.
Yeah, you very much so have to. And I would like to piggyback off of what you were just saying right now. You said so much powerful things right there as well. Number one, you're correct. Verbiage. I actually have a podcast episode on my YouTube that everyone listening to this should listen to, which is The Power of Verbiage, in which I feature another beautiful queen just like yourself. And we speak about that because The universe, source, God, however anybody verbalizes that, does not understand not. So when you say I'm not good enough, you actually are saying you are good enough. So you're being presented with opportunities for you to show up good enough, but then you're telling yourself you're not good enough. And that's the emotional obstacle that we tend to pull ourselves through, right? Is trying to figure out, why am I experiencing what I know that I want, but I just can't do it? It's because you're telling yourself that you can't, when in reality you can. You just really, like you said, have to affirm. And that's something that I do a lot with my clients. We work on affirmations. One of my previous clients just came to my house yesterday, and she was just telling me, like, I love in your group coaching program that you had us work on those affirmations, because I went back and looked at my notebook of the affirmations that you had us write down, and everything I affirmed has came true in less than a year. And sometimes we put these big expectations on our reality of how we want to experience. But what happens when you shift your mind to recognize what you want is already right there in front of you? It's just, are you perceived enough to look at it? Kind of like on your car, on the mirror, it says objects are closer than they appear. Right? It's just, are you looking in the rear view at the past experiences and judging that, or are you looking forward and recognizing that you're moving forward from experience? Like, that's the best part about it.
I totally agree. And something you said earlier really resonated with me. I have a team member who said recently he thought that as he got older and got into a more leadership role, that he would see he's so knowledgeable, he has so much to bring to the table. And he's like, but now I'm here and I'm looking to my left and my right and I'm seeing leadership and what they're doing. And I'm realizing people aren't as smart as I thought they were. We give leadership, we give titles, we give age, this thought that it is so much farther superior. That's not, sometimes that's true, but that's not always the case. Oftentimes it is your self-belief and your
Yeah.
work ethic that helps set
Yeah.
you apart.
Yes, that's so true. To add another thing to what you just said too, it's also your reality, right? If you ever realize, Pamela, like, we watch TV and we can watch hours worth of people saying that they're successful. But here's what I realized. No one can tell you exactly how to become successful, right? You can read 1,000 books, you can do it all. Here's the reason why. Your success and my success are two different versions of success. So until someone is able to get clarity on what their version of happiness looks like, what their version of success looks like, what their version of positive leadership, accountability, empowering others, until someone can see what does that look like for you, you're always going to feel like you're behind the wheel, because comparison is the thief of joy, right? And you need joy, you need positive vibes and positive energy to make an impact. So I love what we're talking about right now.
Mhm. So, how do you recommend that people start thinking about who they want to be and what they want to grow towards and get really clear on that?
Yeah. So I would recommend, number one, let's talk about purpose really quick, right? Why is really is so important. I have a small book on Amazon titled Becoming Intentional on Purpose. It's a practical guide to alignment, right? And in that book, I share my story, but I also share these practical steps in which I like to call the RAD methodology, right? Like, my family, my friends, they compliment me all the time because I'm a very radical thinker. Like, if you tell me I'm about to be homeless, I'm like, perfect. All right, so this is what you're going to do. You're going to live inside your car, then you're going to go to Planet Fitness, and you're going to take a shower, and then you're going to go to the library every day. And I'm just very radical. So first, get in alignment with your why, because that's actually what RAD stands for. Release, alignment, accomplish, and dream, right? So RAD, that's like totally radical, dude. You have to get in alignment with your why. And oftentimes that comes with, like we're talking about, releasing those negative and limiting beliefs, right? Like when we think about someone like Jeff Bezos, he started in his garage. Now this man is competing with the post office at this point, right? That's radical. If he probably would have told someone years back that this is where he would be, Someone would think that he was insane, but his mindset was so radical. So for anybody listening to this that would like to say, how can I really start to act upon creating and growing my dream business? You have to know your why. And the why ties directly into your platform, which is getting over that should. Because once you know your why, and once it's deep down, which is 9 times out of 10 tied to some trauma that you've been through, like me getting my car repossessed, right? You lose the should because it's no longer about you. It's about helping others who you know are in the same scenario.
That is so true. And I think about almost women who aren't great to other women. And I think that I accidentally was one of those. And I want to say accidentally because I am a big, huge advocate for women. I feel like I've cheerleaded my whole life, but I grew up being told that, women have a certain behavior expectations, be small, be good, be humble, be quiet, be helpful, be thankful all of the time. And then I entered into a relationship that echoed something very similar, which was these are how women act. This is biblical. This is whatever that looked like for me. And I remember I worked with somebody and that person was loud and vivacious and she said cuss words and she left her kids with her husband so she could go to the bar and drink wine with her friend. And I was like, what is this life? What moms don't do that. And I was personally affronted. And I remember sitting at home one night and I'm like, I can't believe she just leaves her kids and she goes and she drinks wine. And then I checked myself. I love RAD, and this moment created something I call dig, discover, investigate, ground, because I wanted to discover like where is this coming from? Why do I feel that way? Because I don't care if a woman drinks wine at a bar with her friends and a dad shouldn't be a babysitter because a dad's a dad, so dads can watch the kids. Like, where is this coming from? And I just started to untangle that I saw certain behaviors as a kid, and that's what I thought was good. And then I got in a relationship and I heard this is how wife should be and moms should be. And I believed that. And I held these quiet judgments in my head against other women for no reason. And it was in that moment I was like, this has to no more. And to the shoulds, if I would have stayed with that mindset, I wouldn't have a podcast. You and I wouldn't be talking. I wouldn't be learning so much from you because I would have never thought it was okay for a woman to have this platform and to speak up and say, this is what's happening. And here is the real world stats. And these are behaviors we're taught. And there's such a thing as a patriarchy. And by the way, our mess is our message. I would have never done it. So thank goodness for radical thinkers like you and people who are willing to dig into the BS that they're taught when they're young, like I had to.
Yes. Oh, so wait a minute. I want to backtrack really quick. So you said you just thought about dig, like just now?
I know in that moment, like I have a quality background. So I go to why, just like you talked about, like, why, wait, wait a minute. Why do I care what she's doing? I kind of like her. She's pretty great. Why am I sitting here saying, oh, she's out drinking wine and her husband's babysitting the kids? And this was like this unraveling moment for me of so much of what we're taught. And Breye'l, I know that you have a little one from a previous conversation, mine are older, but the fact that when I traveled for work, I was always asked who's watching the kids, always. But my husband, when he traveled, not one time was ever asked who's watching the kids. Like, these are stories that we tell ourselves, but these are also stories we live in. And I find it our job to start deconstructing that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You just have me up. Okay. Like you have me up because what you're speaking about is so powerful, right? It took you being inside of a space of aligning with yourself, right? And recognizing like the fact that I have any type of judgment towards anybody else means that it's something I have to dig within, deep within myself and acknowledge this because it's really me. It's not her. You probably were thinking like, I would love some wine right now, but the guilt, the judgment, the shame, all of those, again, like low vibrational frequency emotions keep us in the should.
And they keep us in a behavior check. I think shame is something that women get told very early to just have with them all the time. It's okay for us to be happy and joyful. Those are good emotions, but like being angry or like visceral with our emotions, those are bad emotions for women to have. And it started to dawn on me they're just emotions, right? And I'm a lot of full spectrum of emotions, and so is a man. Like he's allowed to cry and be vulnerable. He doesn't have to be strong all the time. Why do we put this silliness on people? And how
Yeah.
do we not do that to our kids, by the way, trying to break some generational trauma?
Right, right. So powerful, so powerful. And even with what you're saying, I promise you, I face the exact same thing of just these different situations that cause me to face these emotions. And other ladies are thinking, how did they overcome this? Like, what was it? And I would love to share what it was for me. Accountability. Here we go. Right? It was accountability. When I worked in a corporate space, when I recognized I was growing, I realized I could not grow alone. So I reached out to someone at my job who I saw and who I admire. And I sent her an email. I'm just like, hey, I know you don't know me. I don't know you, but I see you walking around the office all the time and you just give me powerful energy. So can you be my mentor? Right. And that was 2017. She and I meet for an accountability call every Monday since the pandemic. This is 4 years later. She has inspired me. I've inspired her. So I would love for us to dig into the concept of accountability. Have you faced any challenges or situations where accountability was important for you?
Oh, absolutely. I think accountability is important for every aspect of our lives. I think about it from being a corporate America person, creating expectations for how we should perform, what the templates, roles, process, all that stuff looks like, and then having accountability bidirectionally from a supervisor and from an employee to accomplish it. Accountability just from how do I want to show up and hold myself accountable for how I am mothering, partnering, being a friend, being a member of society. I have my own personal standards, and sometimes those get challenged or need to be challenged. A good understanding of where to be accountable comes from appropriate self awareness, which takes time.
I totally agree with that, especially the self awareness part and especially the take time. Oftentimes, we want to zoom towards success. But what does it benefit you to zoom towards success if when you get there, you can't be a guide towards other people, right? And again, that's where the self assessment comes in at because the people who you're going to help when you become a coach, when you become a podcast host, when you become anything it is that you want to be when you're making impact, a leader of any sort, it's the self experience, it's those stories, it's your past that people want to know about. But if you haven't taken the time to get into alignment with yourself, you will easily jump into these opportunities and try to show up as someone else when that doesn't really work like that. And I believe, honestly, that's what makes me unique as a confidence coach because I'm going to work on that personal confidence and that professional confidence. Anybody who works with me knows we're not jumping into professional confidence before we talk about who you are personally, right? Because that's something we want to skip past. And I believe that accountability, like you said, is subjective to everyone. It's very important that our accountability starts from within, right? The accountability to simply say, I'm going to work on myself past the materialistic things that other people would say that I'm good enough to have, right? I'm going to work on affirming within myself that I'm good enough, I'm worthy enough, that people love to be around me. They love the products that I create. They love the services that I offer, right? I'm going to work on myself by saying, I know that maybe I want to start a business in 5 years. And right now, I just don't see myself as physically fit. So let me get inside the gym before we even start accomplishing these goals, right? Mindset work. I believe that the categories that we should work on ourselves before we even really get to like the professional realm is like mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually, right? And one may think, okay, well, she said financially, so doesn't that align with professionally? It can, but there's a lot of spiritual work and accountability works that goes into even seeing if we're worthy enough to have these finances that we want. It's the reason why people hit the lottery and the next thing you know, they're broke It's because financially they had not worked on the worthiness of saying this is something that I can have and this is something that I can maintain. But again, it all boils down to, are you willing to be accountable within yourself to start to work on you? And then are you willing to attach yourself to someone else that can help you grow? But people who are growing only want to be surrounded by others who are growing. So you can't be a leech. So you have to start working on yourself first before anything. They are not going to have the, I should be working on myself right now, but I can't. They're over the shoulds.
We
Yeah.
are over the shoulds. I love how you described accountability, and it feels a lot like self-leadership. And I wonder if the woman who is now your mentor, who walked by you and she was so emboldened and empowered, she was that confidence likely came from a place of self-leadership, of having personal accountability, of being clear on who she is.
Yeah.
So tell me more about how you lace the accountability aspect into your coaching.
Yes, I would love to share that. All right. So, first, I lace that in if anybody listening to this now or in the future knows that they need accountability. I would love for you to come join my Facebook group. So, on Mondays now, I host at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time an accountability group, right? So, of course, that's like the entry point. Like, you have to come over there first before we even consider working together, because I need to see the small steps first, right? But within our actual one-on-one or group coaching programs, accountability looks like you're going to show up and be willing to get up early in the mornings and create miracle mornings for yourself, right? It may not be something that you decide to stick with forever, but when we work together, you're going to work on that, right? Because oftentimes what we don't see is that, and I love this explanation, our brains are just like a garden, right? I'm an avid gardener as well. And so you cannot plant a tomato and expect a cucumber. The same way, our brain can only think one thought at a time, right? So when we wake up, our minds are on auto program, since we're habitual humans, where your mind is going to think the same thoughts that it was thinking yesterday, today, unless you intentionally break the habits and strive to reprogram your mind. So when we work together, there's a high level of accountability for, like I spoke about earlier, affirmations, visualization, reading, scripting, putting yourself inside of a space where you're going to be accountable enough to work on those aspects of you. So that way, when you come to me, if we're one-on-one, or if you come to the group, if we're in a group coaching program, that others can see as well. So that's just a small snippet of how we tie that accountability in. And I shared that example in particular because, again, it's so much like spiritual work or energy work that gets done. And it's not something that you can go to Walmart and pay for, right? It's something that you really have to do in your spare time. And if no one holds you accountable, you'll just say, I'm not going to do that, but I'm still going to come to the coaching call. We're going to know that you didn't work on that part. That's why we need accountability.
Yes. Well, and I want to dig into that a little bit, because there's the personal accountability. I'm going to show up and do what I say I'm going to do because I have integrity. And there is the self-leadership portion that goes into that, but then the coach accountability. I've bought so many journals, and I have bought so many programs, so many self-led Zooms and Kajabis and Thinkifics and whatever the format is. And I don't oftentimes finish them. And statistics would indicate most people don't finish those courses they sign up for. I don't always carve out time for a journal, even though I believe it's part of a good practice. I don't always make time for that. But when there's somebody that meets with you weekly, biweekly, monthly, whatever that schedule looks like, and they say, "Hey, how'd your journal practice go?" You can either lie and say it looks great, or you could say, I didn't kind of keep up with it, and then have a conversation around better time management or how you could do things differently. Or you say, I did it, and here's
Yeah.
what I learned from it. And you have somebody to collaborate with and
Yeah.
brainstorm with. And that to me is where transformation happens. It doesn't always happen alone in your silo in your brain, although it's a beautiful place to be. having a collaborative spirit and somebody to talk to and brainstorm with, and that accountability and that coaching aspect of it transforms.
For sure. For sure. And you said the perfect word too, which was collaboration, right? We cannot go at this alone. Even though society wants us to feel like you're independent queen, you can do it by yourself, right? They are very much so hashtag you don't need a man, you can do it by yourself, right? Like this is the energy that's happening all around. But, and I learned this from the book Think and Grow Rich, I am a avid, avid proclamation person for a mastermind alliance, right? I've learned in the book, your brain plus my brain creates a third brain. So as you and I are speaking right now, there is a third brain at work that is full of intellectual property, which is allowing this podcast to flourish and both of us to learn so much from each other, right? So if we stay in our own space, and you can't get the third brain, like you can't do it, and you need the third brain. You need that accountability because again, it's so much bigger than what we is. I think one of the parts, if anybody's listening and is on the fence still about the accountability, I think what you have to really dive deep into again is the impact, right? One of the things that I vowed when I first started queenhood, which is the overall entity of my business, is that I only want to work with purpose-driven businesses. I only want to work with people who have that purpose, that why, like we talked about earlier in this conversation. You have to be heavy on the why, because when you're heavy on the why, you will recognize that you're not perfect, I'm not perfect, right? And the perspective of imperfection allows you to recognize that that's where the beauty lies. So when you're tied to your why, you're actually okay with showing up to accountability call. And instead of lying, you will say, I just didn't make the time for it. Can you help me now? Work on my time management, right? And so again, when you're purpose driven and when you're operating from the energy that you want to make that impact, you want to show your why, you want to tell your story, you want to help others who are at a 3 and maybe you just feel like you're at a 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you want to help others, you will really show up in ways that like will surpass your mind.
Mm-hmm. I love the collaboration and the coaching and the mentors and the having your own personal board of directors, your friends. Something else that's really important about a why is it's a filter. The why
Yeah.
helps filter your yeses and your nos because you should be saying your yeses and your nos in alignment with where you're trying to grow. So the why can become like the Wonder Woman shield, like ching ching, and like knock the things off that don't belong. So understanding, getting clarity on the why or the purpose, like you said earlier, and then being in alignment and then allowing that to feed your dream. That's hugely important. You spoke some important stuff here. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I
Baby,
want
I'm telling you.
I want to ask you a question because you mentioned the programs that you have and the work that you do. How do you define high value queen, which is your words?
You're so great. I've heard just great questions. A high value queen is one who is aggressively preoccupied with leveling up her personal and professional confidence, right? The high value queen, it doesn't matter the car you drive. It doesn't matter the house you live in. It doesn't matter if you're married. It doesn't matter if you have kids. None of that matters. What matters is that you're aggressively preoccupied with working on your confidence personally and professionally. Like that's where the value lies. Because again, if you're working on your confidence personally, you are in alignment with your why. You're in alignment with your purpose. That will inevitably segue you right into you being confident professionally because you're not trying to show up like anybody else. You're not doing this for a paycheck. You're willing to put the time and energy in and possibly not make money for a while on the front end while you get very clear on your purpose, the people that you're meant to connect with.
Mhm.
That's where the value comes in. That I truly believe that value is not on the money, it's on the impact and the feelings that you feel within yourself and that you let other people feel from connecting with you.
That is an awesome definition. I know some high value queens, and I think that every other woman I know or don't know should be one. I love that definition. You know what's interesting from the beginning of your story to hearing how you define the high value queen is part of that high value queen, hearing you describe it, is the ability to unapologetically write your own story. Because if you would have let the shoulds tell you that not like getting kicked out of college, as you said in the beginning, or having your car repossessed, like those are things that should be upsetting or should have changed our trajectory or should give us a label. You didn't let that define you. You decided to still write your own story and become the person that you wanted to become. And obstacles are what they are. And in doing so, and I want everybody to hear this because I think we take our stories that we think aren't beautiful and then we let them be a cloud over our lives. But in owning the story, you can relate to other people now. Because if you were a finance wizard who had it all together, you aren't going to connect to the audience that you have. You have the audience because you're real and authentic and you've lived life. And I think that people need to know you don't have to be perfect or have it all together. Our lives really aren't the Instagram reel that's curated for us. It's a bunch of baloney. Like we
Yeah,
have real challenges and it's okay. And you can take those and you could turn those into the high valued self that you want to be.
yeah, yeah. And if I can add this too, as a merge between the two of us, and I would never forget what I'm about to say, is we should own our stories. It is our responsibility, right? We should make impact. We should tell others. We should put ourselves out there to really allow others to see that side of us, right? Because here's the funny thing about it. Everybody goes through the same thing, right? Like, and it goes to us recognizing it's only so many obstacles in this lifetime that you can experience. It can be dis-ease, it can be financial hardships, it can be death, it can be losing a job, it can be your kids not liking you, it can be you and your husband getting into an argument. It's only so many things, right? So if we know that, it then takes out the woe is me, right? And then it
Mhm.
allows you to say, I'm not the only one going through this. I can share this story with someone else. And even if you're not sharing it to empower someone else, you can share it to get help from someone else, which will then inevitably change your mindset about your story, which then will still put you in purpose to help someone else.
I love that. I would say I still think should is a little bit of a bad word. I would change it a little bit and say, I must write my own story. I must take agency on my life. I must be willing to have accountability across the board, whether that's self leadership or getting a coach. I would change the shoulds to I must make an impact because
Yeah.
you have this time on earth, whatever it is. You are unique. You bring something valuable and different. You have innate gifts, and the world must see them. And that means, yes,
Yes, I love that. If I could end, in a sense,
yes.
by saying this about the should, connecting with you has opened up my mind. Like this very moment.
So I love to end the podcast with asking guests, what is your favorite quote?
Yes. All right. So my favorite quote is by Buddha, and it basically states, like a lotus in the murky waters, here am I, right? And I'm really paraphrasing so that the ladies can get it. Here am I, untouched by the world. Thus, I am awake. I'm present, right? So, just being in that space of recognizing that there are so many obstacles that can be around us. There's so many people, places, and things that we must release. But when you're operating in purpose, you are untouched by those murky waters. And that is what truly allows you to be present and to show up as that high value queen.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that quote with us.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to leave as a takeaway? Any places people can find you that I could also put in the show notes? What do you have for us?
Yes. All right. So here we are, ladies. Let's take this away. I would love to see you Mondays and Wednesdays, and let's talk about how we can show up together. So again, Mondays on Facebook, In my Create and Grow Your Dream Business Facebook group, we have accountability calls, but here's how it gets better, okay? Let's say Monday you come to the accountability call and you feel empowered. I know you're going to feel empowered. It's the inevitable, right? So then Tuesday comes and then you're like, dang, that was good on Tuesday, but what do I do now? Wednesdays, I offer a collaboration and co-working session, right? You can get the link in my Facebook group. It's via Zoom, so virtual is perfect. You can bring your questions, you can get help, you can get accountability, you can come connect with other like-minded women on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So after this podcast, and I know that this conversation is evergreen, so it doesn't matter if you're listening in 2024 or 2034. I'm expecting to see you at the collaboration calls, because when we connect, when we grow together, it is the inevitable that we'll grow.
I love that. Speak it into existence. Well, thank you again for your inspiring story and your incredible knowledge nuggets that you dropped on us. I really enjoyed having you as a guest, and maybe we could do this again in the future.
Of course we can. I would love to have you over on my podcast as well. To all the listeners, thank you so much. And Pamela, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Breye'l.
Yes, talk to you soon.